My name is Kara Grafft. I'm an education liaison with Four Oaks, and we have an amazing student panel today where we are really wanting to create a platform for youth to tell us as educators and adults what they need and what they care about. And recently, I've been listening to some student panels and some podcasts where students have been able to share what they've been experiencing the last few years. And it really opened my eyes to the fact that what I thought students and adolescents were struggling with might not actually be true. And I think that might be the case for a lot of adults. Maybe we're thinking they're experiencing stress over COVID or parent finances or feeling disconnected or a loss. And what I was hearing from students was that it's more stress about homeworks and grade and being on screens too long and things I hadn't even thought about. And so this really propelled a number of us to say, we need to get some adolescents together across the state of Iowa and speak to us so we can get a better idea. My first question today is, what do you want adults and teachers to know about what it's like to be you right now?
So when it comes to adults and teachers and I think they should know, for me specifically, I can be very overwhelmed or stressed out depending on homework and scheduling, and depending on what classes I have. That is something I would like them to know. So if they see me frustrated or anything like that, I would want them to understand.
Something for me as a student is like when assignments may not get turned in on the exact date, or I'm falling behind in a class. Some teachers, not just me, but as a whole student body, some teachers and adults may see that as me being lazy or as us not wanting to get the work done. But sometimes for some students, the most that they can do that day is get out of bed and just be present at school. So instead of looking at it through a lens of they're lazy or they're not doing this when they should be, they're just unmotivated, sometimes they're just under a lot of stress or have a lot of mental things going on. So sometimes they just need that space and time for themselves to get things done.
It's important to be patient, because I know for me it's really easy. I get anxious really fast, and I know when I fall behind, it's harder to catch up with schoolwork. And I feel like some teachers don't fully understand that some students take longer to learn things.
Okay, so the next question is, what do you notice is something positive and something negative that has occurred for your age group the last few years in relationship to the pandemic and everything that's gone on?
I think a huge negative impact is the need for social media, kind of. I've realized big time is how I depend on it, and it makes a huge difference when it's not in your life and you feel a lot better.
I would think a positive is since quarantine hit and you couldn't do anything, kids really missed out on all of the extracurricular activities and social events that they used to go to. It could be a traditional thing that they went to every single year. And I think I've noticed a lot of kids, when they got to do that stuff again, it really brought out such joy in their face and in their body language and personality. A negative thing would probably be them not motivated as much. I know in the state of Iowa, when quarantine first hit, we weren't required to do online school. We didn't have to do it. And I think that kind of made them think, oh, I don't have to do this. And then when they come back to school and have to, reality sets in. So
do you think the transition from being in virtual and structuring your own time and kind of managing your day, and then the step back into, okay, I'm in school for this long and I have to go at this period and asked to go to the bathroom and all of that, do you think that that was a difficult transition to come back into the school environment when you've structured your time one way for so long?
I can most definitely speak to that. I do have some. There was a time where school just got boring for a while, and that does lead to certain classes, of course. But there, after like being in the pandemic and I guess being with myself, I just didn't, I guess, want to be out there as much or more, or get more intrigued by what I like to learn, you know. But it wasn't just there anymore. But now that I've gotten used to it again, I'm, you know, into it, and yeah.
Thank you. Any other thoughts on that?
I do think a lot of students lack motivation, whether, like someone said, to get out of bed in the morning, to even come to school, or to even write their name on their homework. It could be many different things, and that is probably one of the most hardest things about kids our age, is trying to find the will to do the things that you need to do on a daily basis.
Do you think the transition from being in virtual and structuring your own time and kind of managing your day, and then the step back into, okay, I'm in school for this long and I have to go at this period and asked to go to the bathroom and all of that, do you think that that was a difficult transition to come back into the school environment when you've structured your time one way for so long?
I think when talking about mental health, it could just be not motivated to do anything. And with social and emotional learning, it could be from having the structure that we got used to, like we talked about earlier, being at home, everything on your own time, your own routine, to the structured routine. As a quick kind of change, it's different. It can lack motivation and wanting to do anything for that matter. From listening in class to doing the classwork to even interacting with your fellow peers or anything like that.
The third question is, there's an increased focus on social and emotional learning in schools. Do you think this is important? Why or why not?
I think it's very important for us to be able, I don't know how to explain it, not like understand our minds, because I mean, we're in our mind enough that we know it, but the increase in focus on these types of subjects are really important, because with the pandemic, a lot of it shifted a lot. For some people, it may not have shifted in the way it did for others, but mentally, it was hard on some people. And coming back to the school environment where you're used to like being with yourself during quarantine, and then coming back and socializing and being with everybody and hearing what everybody has to say, good or bad, it can really take a toll on students.
I can agree to that. I think social emotional learning is very beneficial. I think it is something that our society has needed for a long, long time. But I also think that then again, some kids aren't willing to be vulnerable. They'll keep it all bottled up. They won't want to talk about it or anything. And the way we're approaching this, I think it's great, because we're not fully pushing it at the students, which will kind of make them turn around and say no. But I think with the research we've done, just like Ms. Dravis said, we're already making such a huge impact. And I think that's a great thing. I think it's really important, and it's really working so far.
I can definitely agree with that on the impact that it will and has already made with some of the students, I believe. And it does give us now students a choice whether to express ourselves or to not, I guess, in that certain social emotional learning area. And I think that is important for them to either, for other students to understand, or even just if they don't want to or not.
Leah and Montanna, do either of you have any thoughts on social emotional learning and its importance Why or why not?
I feel like it's really important. I mean, I also feel like sometimes it can get really overlooked. Like some people prioritize it, but other people don't really step in to help with it. And I feel like that's why the growth of it is really important.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay. The last one, and then we'll kind of open up for anything else, is what is helpful to you in managing your stress? What's working for you?
When it comes to managing my stress, for many people it's different, but for me, right now, it'd be working out, and I feel like that helps me a lot. Maybe some time to myself does help me a lot too, instead of just constantly being productive. I think that's certainly something that gets rid of stress.
For me, I journal, which I know I feel like a lot of people say, and it's like a really popular way to cope with like stress. But really, it does help. Like, and even if it's not like journaling about this made me upset today or this stressed me out today, maybe, and sometimes it is that, because being able to put that on paper and write it out and leave it to my notebook does help. But sometimes it's, what are 3 things I'm grateful for today? What are 3 things that went well today? And sometimes it's about turning the negative into the positive. Like, what could I have done better today in this situation? How could I have handled this better? So just journaling, whether it be on negative stuff that happened or positive stuff, or turning positive into a negative, has really, really helped.
For me, it has been art. I love expressing my different emotions in different types of art and different mediums of art. I think art is a very beautiful and powerful thing, and it has really allowed me to express how I feel from any emotion. So.
For me, it's probably either cleaning, being outside, or even just going to work.
I feel like for a while for me, I really struggled with finding a way to deal with it, and it seemed like nothing would really help. But I feel like recently I've gotten into reading, and that's helped me a lot.
So I hear, I'm a school counselor here at the high school, and I hear a lot from students saying that they are so overwhelmed and stressed. And I'm just curious to hear, what are those things that overwhelm you and stress you?
I can go into a lot of things, but I think homework, of course, is like top priority of stress when it comes to school, of course, because it's practice, and it's practice for what you're trying to learn. But having a due date on it, or making it to maybe up to a certain standard, it can challenge the student, but at the same time, it can also stress them out.
For me, I feel like it's more of like home issues that carry into like having to go to school where the teachers don't know what's always going on. And so it's not a thought in the back of their head that there's more to every story.
For me, it's probably trying to balance having good grades while doing sports and having a job.
For me, I'd probably have to say worrying about my future, because I'm a junior. I'm going to graduate next year. Worrying about what education they're going to be able to provide for me, even admission costs, living costs, all of that.
I'm going to piggyback off that. I would have to 100% agree with her. That's my thing right now. I'm a senior, so I'm literally gone in a couple months, and college decisions has really stressed me out. And because like I balance between going to New York City, which is very far from here and very different from here, and but staying home and being with family for a little bit longer before I'm truly like needing to be an adult and going out on my own and doing my own stuff. So that has really put a lot of stress, and certain like people that we sometimes when you go to a certain adult and you're like, I need help with this decision, sometimes it's more catered to what they think is right for you. And sometimes they do know. But being able to talk with adults, like I've talked to Stephanie a lot about where I want to go to college, and she has really helped me because she knows me enough to know that this place might be a good fit for me, but she also knows about like how close I want to be with my family still. And so something that induces stress is when I talk to an adult about what I want to do and they're like, well, why don't you just stay here? Sometimes it's not what I want to do. So sometimes it's just I don't know, I guess opinions about what I should do with my future kind of stresses me out sometimes.
Thank you. And then a follow-up question to that is, I know we addressed this earlier about how teachers could talk with you about it, like either one-on-one or in a small group. But what are some practical things or maybe some outside of the box thinking that teachers could do to help you with your stress level? Whether it is homework or college or home life or the responsibilities, what could your teachers do to help you? Or a school, what could a school do to help you with that stress?
Can you guys hear me? Yeah? Okay. Yay, finally. So I'm not a student. I'm an adult. But I can still somewhat answer this question just because Chloe and I have talked about this kind of stuff before. But I think that what teachers and staff members could do to help with stress for some students would be to sometimes with school and balancing out of school life with like they have jobs and they are struggling with personal relationships and then they have a mental illness or like something's going on with a sibling. Like there's so many external factors that students deal with nowadays. It's insane. And then you put social media on that and then who knows what could develop from that. So I feel like kind of it gets very overwhelming. That's the whole point of the stress. And I feel like making a simple like to-do list of like what is going on that I can help you with right now. So like I have marketing students that shadow me and they tell me about their stress all the time and I deal with stress myself. So I know the kind of feelings they're feeling. And I'm like, what can we do today that would make you feel better about yourself? That's what I do with my students because I'm like, let's forget about what marketing is about for a day. And like, if you need me to help you with your college application, let's get out your computer because it'll make them feel better about themselves. It's one thing on their list that they don't have to do anymore. So I know that I'm not a student and I'm answering that question anyway, but that's what I do with some of my students is like, because I feel like when they get the pressure of being overwhelmed with everything they have going on in their life, they start feeling down about themselves because it's like, oh, I forgot to do this, or I'm behind on this, or I have a million things going on and I still haven't done this assignment. So it's like, what's one thing that you could do today that would make you feel better about yourself tomorrow and for the rest of the day today? That's what I like to do.
So like helping understanding how to prioritize, like backburnering what's going on here. How can we prioritize so that you can open up some bandwidth in your brain for whatever our content stuff is, but prioritizing what can I take care of right now and experience a little bit of success before moving on to the next thing.
Exactly. And like being able to write down everything that's in your mind, that's like the things that you have to do. Even if it's a super long list, when you cross it off or you see the list on a piece of paper, you're like, oh, it's not that bad. But when it's just in your head, I feel like it's this overwhelming cloud that kind of weighs down on you. But when it's like a list that you can cross off and you can be like, I did something, then you feel better about it and it minimizes the cloud that's heavy.
I'm one of the marketing students that she works with, and I can say that if more teachers really did say, like, take a break, let's take a break today from learning, or just take a little break during this class from learning and prioritize yourself in this time and do what you need to do. And if you want to talk, I'm here. because I know that if I did not have Stephanie last trimester, this trimester or next trimester, I probably would not be doing as well as I am doing, because she really does take that time and make it known that, like, if I do need someone to talk to, she is 100% there for me all the time whenever I need her. So even if teachers don't take time out of their lessons or their lesson plans or their schedules to be like, okay, let's take a little bit of time for ourselves, just letting students know that you are there if they need you is 100% beneficial.
But if you have specific examples of what an adult, because that is my goal. My goal is to make every student realize or feel that they have a caring adult, more than one caring adult that they can go to. So what would be an example that you could give that would be an explicit example?
I have a teacher that he kind of pays attention to body language, because I feel like that can be a huge sign in knowing if something's going on. And so I feel like if he pays attention to that, he'll realize that, and he kind of takes the time to help us through like what we're learning. Because I feel like it's a lot harder to learn when you're having a bad day like that, and he makes it a lot easier to focus and work through them.
For me, I have a teacher that really mainly focuses on people's voice tones. So if he can like tell there's a change in their voice tone, he'll come and he'll talk to you and he'll try and figure out something. Or even if it's just because you're struggling with the assignment, he'll sit down and he'll talk. Or we have like an 8th-hour thing and he'll have you come in during that and you guys will just have a conversation.
I have a teacher, and what he likes to do is in the beginning of class, he'll have a cue of the day, and it'll be whatever question he has, and we have a discussion, so he really gets to know us. And I think that's a cool connection-wise thing, and I think that really does something in that area, I think.
Kind of what Matthew said. I have a teacher, and even what Leah said, just like the body language, I noticed he was having an off week, and then the next week I was having an off week, and we both noticed that about each other. And it feels good to know somebody notices when you're not okay. It's like they actually pay attention and actually care. And I think that's just a really nice thing, is to pick up on those clues and all of that. And he'll just ask, hey, are you okay? Like, do you need to talk? Do you need to rant? Do you need just a hug? You know, it's just the simple things, I feel like, for me anyways, are always making the biggest impact on me.
I like that was kind of a combination of what you all have shared, is some of the individual checking in and one-on-one, and then Matthew, like your bigger group example. So it seems like you were able to come up with some good examples of, adults talk about all the time, having good relationships with kids or strong relationships with kids so that they feel like they have someone to go to and talk to. And it's what you're saying is it's noticing and following up and being a consistent person and just starting the conversations. So I think that's really great, because it just shows how maybe that connects with some people that like the one-to-one, and maybe some people that open up better in a group setting. Any other questions since we're getting low on time? Oh yeah, Brittany, you did have one.
I did have a really quick one, and not everybody has to answer this, but I think a lot of because you probably experienced this, a lot of people my age and older grew up in a world where when things didn't go our way or we were feeling bad, adults around us were like, suck it up, buttercup, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, right? And that is how we are now treating the next generation, not because we want to, but because that is kind of what we know. So my question for you is, when you experience those moments where you're having a hard day and there's either something said to you by an adult where it's like, hey, you just got to suck it up, you just got to deal with it, what is going on in your mind? How are you kind of reacting to that, if that makes sense?
The way I'd say I react to it, of course, it depends on maybe the teacher, the relationship I have with that person. But if there is a moment where it's just like, suck it up, got to deal with it, there's a part of me that's, I believe I've somewhat matured, and it's like, yeah, that's true. I do kind of have to suck it up, but maybe that helps me realize to look at it in a positive way, hopefully. And yeah, maybe I just need to get it done, and then it's not as big as a problem that I thought it was in my mind from the example earlier. Maybe if I were to write it down, maybe look at it, it's like, oh, it's not so big. I can handle this.
For me, I guess like when I hear it, initially for like a second, I'm like, that's not helpful. But then I get to thinking about it, and just like I don't know how to explain it, but like telling people just to suck it up isn't going to work for everybody. And I get that the older generations, that's how they were raised. But for some people, they can't just suck it up. It follows them everywhere they go. It's every thought that they have. It's not just easy to suck it up. So for me personally, I'm just like, whatever. It's how they were raised. I'm not going to think too much of it because we are like products of what we live in. But for some people, they can't just suck it up. They can't just suck it up and move on. It's their every thought. It's what they think about when they close their eyes and when they open their eyes in the morning. So
I'll piggyback off of Chloe. I'm just an overthinker. And so if someone tells me, you know what, you're just being too sensitive or just suck it up, like it really gets to me. Like my body goes into full like panic shutdown mode. Like it's just hard to even look at that person for a while. But like I said, and like Chloe said, it just depends on the person even. You know, some families raise their kids like that still, and that's how their kids feel. They're just like, okay, I have to suck it up. And some families don't. I think it all depends on the environment that people are raised in.
Is it true too, we can accept hearing suck it up from people we have a good relationship with that know us well enough to know, like, I can say this right now or not? And if it's someone we don't have a good relationship with, then we're like, you don't get me, this is terrible. But if it's someone that we're connected with and knows us well enough to know, like, this is maybe what they need to hear right now. So it kind of goes back to some of that relationship piece too. Okay. Go ahead, Matthew. Did you have something to say?
I was going to say I definitely agree with that when it comes to your relationship, which, like, I must admit, I have some teachers, if they'll say something and on the, hey, I just need to get this done, or they're being serious about it, that relationship does affect the way it's like, oh, maybe I should get on it real, like, fast, like instantly, rather than maybe some other teachers were like, hey, I need this done. It's like, okay, I'll get to it just in like a minute. I got another thing going on at the moment.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. Okay. Any other parting thoughts? I really can't express to you all enough my gratitude for your time. And truly, you're such an articulate, thoughtful, just, I feel hopeful when I talk to you all. So thank you for just having a conversation with us and helping us better understand how we can do better for youth. I mean, it really means a lot. So I know we'll follow up with this in a variety of different ways, and I know that you will hear about it, but just really know, heartfelt from us, thanks so much for your time. We really, really appreciate it.